Hey guys, this is Freddie with Superbike Unlimited, and today we've got another update on our MotoAmerica R1 Superbike project. I'm in the back right now. I've just been working away at this thing. We've got some new parts in. We're going to cover a handful of updates, and we're going to kind of just keep chipping away at this thing. So next, what we've got our World Superbike Bodywork in. And basically what we're doing is just fitting all that stuff up. There's a bunch of special mounting brackets. We had to modify some things, which has become a common theme, I'm sure you guys have gathered. And we've just gotten everything to where we should be able to start fitting stuff. So with this kit, we have a special, basically all carbon fiber upper intake and mount and dash holder and protector for that matter. And again, we've got our I2M chrome in there, which has our Yamaha Europe firmware. And you can see this is essentially has our supports for the bodywork. And then there's a handful of little brackets like this guy that are all over the bike, and we're just going to start mocking all this up. And we've also got a really nice brake upgrade, and we'll show you that in just a minute. All right, so we're kind of just mocking stuff up, so obviously don't judge us for having wires and things hanging out. Like, obviously we're not going to run it like that, but we're just test fitting the bodywork. We do see some things. It looks like we're still missing some stuff. Again, this is a common theme, and it's just because we have incomplete components, and we're trying to piece this all together versus buying like a complete bike from Yamaha. So we're seeing right away that we appear to be missing something here to retain the seat onto the subframe, and it could be because this seat is the newer generation versus the subframe is one generation older. And you can see there's a mount right there that we're not utilizing, so it's very likely that that's the reason. We'll just have to come up with some kind of solution to interface this with the subframe. Not a big deal. And then Martin is currently just kind of mocking up our upper. And again, this is the current World Superbike spec upper, which has a really unique aero package. It's built to FIM standards. You can see this is pretty different from a standard bike. And it all is intended to be used together. Like, you have to use this complete kit. All right, guys, we're back, and we're having to do some deconstruction and then reconstruction, which has been a common theme. We found some interference with our bodywork. Basically, the way we had the damper oriented flat like this was going to cause some problems. So we've got a few solutions we're going to try. I overnighted one from Duca Bike, which basically is just a clamp that changes the mounting orientation. You can see how the original one works versus this one. So we'll try this, and also our good friend Steve at Evol Technology sent us an alternate one to try. So we should have that sorted out today. I don't expect there to be any surprises or issues in that regard. We're going to go ahead and we're going to have to, we made our dash harness, as you can see. We're going to have to make a revision because the version of headbox that we're using right here doesn't have, it basically only has a switch 12 volt versus a constant, which we also need to use correctly with the I2M. So we're going to make a special sub harness basically directly from our battery and also into this dash harness that allows us to essentially power the dash correctly. So we'll show that in a bit. In the future, we're going to come up with a different loom design that doesn't do that, but in the meantime, it's not a big deal because we're planning to put a battery right here anyway, so why not? And then we were kind of just going through everything. Martin just pulled everything back apart just to check all of our connections and reroute some stuff. Pretty straightforward. We did get our rear box harness. Is that still connected? Yes. That's going to be this guy. We're still trying to put this bike on track this weekend. I don't know if we're going to be able to do it or not, but if we do, we're probably not going to be able to make our box for this yet, so we'll just have to secure these and kind of get them out of the way. And then next we have our brakes that I mentioned. We got some really cool brake upgrades. One of the first parts, obviously, that's critical is we got our brake line kits from Core Moto. This is kind of just a beta level kit, which basically just means it's for testing purposes. It's not going to be the final design, but it includes our fitting here, which has an inline pressure sensor that we can use, of course, which is vital for the Superbike. Some of the Stalblies that we're going to use are back ordered, so we're waiting on those. And we have some stuff here, but not a complete set to do both bikes. This is an A bike and a B bike kit. So for now, we're probably not going to have our full Stalbly set up, but it'll be enough to get the thing set up, and also just to check our line links and make sure that that's all validated and exactly what we want before we finalize. So all that's coming up. All right, guys, and please forgive the clutter. Like I said, we're kind of just smashing through a lot of stuff at once, so a lot more messy in here than normal because we're doing 5 things at once. Not always the most effective means, but that's what we're doing. So yeah, I want to show you guys, we got this brake upgrade. Of course, we're already using the World Superbike Spec Brembo system, and it's tried and true, but there is a new revision of that, and we've gone ahead and got those. And basically what this is just a total update to the braking package, and it's something that was developed in MotoGP and is now in World Superbike and, of course, MotoAmerica. Essentially, the biggest changes are this is a boosted caliper, so it has a system that actually sort of multiplies lever input, so less fatigue for the rider and more overall braking power. Obviously, it has cooling fins, which apparently have a substantial impact on operating temps. It comes standard with these quick release fittings on both the bleeder and the input, and then of course it comes with these badass Stalbly/Brembo fittings. And then we do have to use a different master cylinder because this has a different piston size. Oh, and also, I'm sorry, before I forget, this is an anti-drag caliper, which is really critical, especially for some of these motorcycles like the R1 that doesn't necessarily have the highest horsepower compared to some of the other superbikes. You want to try to maximize the efficiency of getting your power to the ground, so having no brake drag is a useful tool for that, and that's what this caliper helps to do. But as I was saying, the pistons are a larger size, so this caliper actually uses a different master cylinder than the previous version. So what we're essentially going to do is, for now, we only have one of these updated systems, and we're going to use that on our A bike, and then on the B bike, we're going to have the previous generation. And we'll test the two and just compare, but I think it's likely that the new version is going to be a clear step, given that that's what everybody's kind of moved to. And the feedback we've heard so far has been really positive. So next up, we're going to be mounting that up and our brake lines and just test fitting everything. All right, guys, so we have our lines kind of mocked up, and you can sort of also see this bracket is in place. Looks like it's going to do the job we need. We might have to do some adjustments once we get the bodywork on. And you can see our setup here with the calipers. Looks pretty nice. We're probably going to tweak the lines just a little once we kind of finalize everything, but they're pretty close. And that's why we only got a couple of sets to start. So, we knew there's a chance of having to make some adjustments, but overall, we're pretty happy with them. And of course, we'll secure everything, so it's going to be probably a bit more like that. But very nice looking. We did have to change out our clamp on the master cylinder because we were using one that was inline for the gale speed. Then we'll have to grab a reservoir kit to sort all that out and kind of finalize the assembly there. And then we're just, Martin is currently mocking up and routing our rear line. You can kind of see how that's going to go. Pretty straightforward. So things are coming along. We're looking good. All right, guys, it is Friday and it is a shitty day. We actually got pretty far along on this bike last night, and this morning actually, and we realized that a vital component that we need to get the bike to make our test that was supposed to have been shipped on a Wednesday overnight didn't get shipped. So yeah, we're not gonna be able to do our test. Super disappointed. So what we're doing now is we've just torn everything back apart. We've got some new loom parts in, some cool stuff from Yamaha in Europe, and I'm just gonna use this time to start swapping some things out that I like better and try to make the most out of the time that we have allocated to finish the bike. So little irritated, but it is what it is. I'm really disappointed because obviously we had people that were planning on helping and everything this weekend, and so I'm super apologetic that I've disrupted so many schedules, but and also that we booked slots at an event and stuff, so it's a bummer, but it is what it is. Anyway, what we're going to be doing now, we've got some cool stuff like this little piece here that's going to essentially be like a junction box that goes in the back here. We'll show you what that looks like. I'm just going to start labeling all those inputs, and we've got our carbon head box up here that's fitted. So a bunch of just little odds and ends that we're going to go ahead and start doing so we can finish tidying this thing up. And also, I've just gone ahead and, this morning, and decided to go ahead and swap. We were using the stock thermostat housing, and it just took up a lot of space in there, especially with us using this plate that we're going to stick in here to again hold connectors. the thermostat housing is just huge. So we've used this Samco thermostat delete kit. Really, this is not meant for this generation of R1 because the drive-by-wire motor is in a different location. I think on the previous generation, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm kind of, it's been a minute, but I think the DBW motor's on the front. Martin, on the old R1, the drive-by-wire motor's on the front of the throttle body? Sorry? On the old R1, the drive-by-wire's on the front of the throttle body, right?
The motor is on the front.
Yeah, so the problem is this technically fits, but really it's a super tight squeeze, and we had to basically run a slightly different clamp and rotate like this clamp, for example, to make that fit. So while it works, it's not really proper, I guess you could say. So this is temporary, and technically this is actually going to be our B bike. We're going to start building the A bike pretty soon. We've just finished up our A bike engine. So the point is, this stuff's temporary. It's just to get this thing all buttoned up. We've actually got a better solution in mind moving forward, and we'll show you that later. But this is still going to work for now, something we can test. We'll run it on the dyno, go through the paces. And I know from speaking with some of the Samco guys, there is already some Superbike people running this exact kit on this generation R1. So while not ideal, it will still work. So still got a bunch of stuff that we need to go through and sort, but today, yeah, that's just what we're doing is finalizing some of that, and again, making use of the time that we had allocated to just finish this thing, which now is not so much of a concern. So we'll document some of that as we're going and keep you updated. All right, guys, so we've got a few more steps of progress here. We've actually got our prototype battery box set up and temporary battery power mount or cable routing. Yeah, this is kind of sort of a rough draft of how we're going to do it, but this is actually one of our former techs and a racer that used to race with us. Anthony came in on Saturday and helped us knock some stuff out, but he made this this box, which will for sure base our final version. We're probably going to 3D print something just because it'll be a bit more tidy, and you know, ideally I'd like to have something that doesn't conduct as easily as this. Shouldn't be an issue, but just to be safe, and you know, it's just going to look nicer. So for now, though, this is a great option. It's going to work just fine. We will we'll add some way to actually secure this battery, whether it be a slot for a strap or some D-rings or something like that. We'll figure that out as we get a little further along. And then next, we've got our swing arm pivot shaft, which we've been waiting on, and that's really the last thing we need to get this motorcycle basically ready to ride. I think we're pretty much good to go after we get this in. So that's what we're gonna replace this rod here with, and we're gonna go ahead and do that right now. Then we've got a roller. Hey guys, we're back in the shop this morning, and we are further progressing the R1. And what we've got going right now is that sorry about that, the air compressor came on right as we were going to show you this, but basically we're going to be running these funnels, and what you see here, this is actually a Yamaha funnel, and this is going to be the latest version of the Superbike funnel, and we're just going to test these. We've obviously got a few designs we're going to test. We're actually going to make our own, and we're just going to basically use the one that performs the best. But this is a promising design. I think it's going to do quite well, and that's what we're going to start with. And we are using a DNA air filter. That's a really good balance of performance and also keeping our air box clean and our valve seats nice and happy. And then moving along, we've got some updates. We designed a pretty nice battery box with the good help of our friend Blake. He's basically helping us kind of revise the geometry of this thing. You can see over here in some of our clutter the evolution of this. Obviously, we made this little this guy here out of aluminum just to sort of get our rough dimensions, and then this is an original design using some Velcro straps, and then here's one of the later designs. This is a 3D printed carbon fiber that we did here, and yeah, we're gonna still need to make a few more adjustments, but we like it a lot. It keys into the support that's on the intake, and this is incredibly strong, so really beyond what we really need, but redundancy is good. And we're going to just make some changes here because you can kind of see the way we've got this battery strap. It's interfering a bit with our terminal location on the battery. So I think what we're going to do is keep the overall distance between the two the same and lower this one and raise the one in the rear just a bit, just to make this a little nicer. I don't like that that it interfaces right there where the terminal goes, but overall, really nice design. This is the most recent version, a little different than the one I just showed you, a little bit lighter. So this is going to be very similar to what we use in our final design. And then Martin's just going to wrap this up. We've also got our exhaust fitted right now. Of course, we're using this Yosh Superbike system, same as used on Wesby's bike. Found it to be a solid performer. It's got a nice look as well. All that's buttoned up. So we should be able to be test firing this thing pretty soon. We've just got to do some basic kind of just, I'm going to plug into the thing once everything's fully assembled, hook the laptop up, turn the motorcycle on, just make sure everything looks normal, do some zeroing of all of our sensors, zero our throttle body, zero our grip, everything, just make sure everything looks the way it's supposed to. We've already primed this engine in terms of oil pressure. And then, yeah, we'll just test fire it, and hopefully everything goes nice and smoothly, no surprises. All right, guys, so we are progressing nicely on this. We've had some hang-ups, and I'm happy to say we've at least worked through it to some extent. One of the big issues while we were kind of test fitting everything is I went ahead and started doing some baseline electronic setup, basically calibrating all the sensors, throttle position, drive-by-wire control, all the vital stuff to make the motorcycle work, and immediately saw an issue with the drive-by-wire, and we've determined that it's basically due to a difference in spec from one of our main harnesses. Like I mentioned before, this bike is broken down into several harnesses, probably like 30 or 40 or something like that. I'd have to go count them out. But anyway, there's a main one that's kind of the core, and everything branches off of that. So basically what happened is we're using a certain spec of main harness from Europe that didn't play nicely with some of our other harnesses, so we had some issues trying to resolve that. Swapped in a different main harness, totally different spec, and it resolved the issue. So we're just gonna now have to modify those other main harnesses to meet the spec of the one that works properly, and that should sort that out. And then we've gone ahead and designed a different battery box. You know, I mentioned that previously. Here's one of the ones that we've printed up. Came out real nice, and then here it is in place. So you can see that resolves our issues of interference with the battery terminals, and I like it better because it's actually easier to get that rear D-ring on, because before it was pretty low on the battery. So this style works a lot nicer. We printed out of a couple of materials. We've got the one you just saw, and then here's a different one, which is basically a carbon-based material. So yeah, this one's nice as well. Both are perfectly usable. I'm not sure which one we're gonna use long term, but both are perfectly good. So the next couple of bits, we've got some exciting stuff. We're going to be putting on our bodywork, which we're using the full World Superbike factory spec bodywork that we were provided by Yamaha Europe. Super stoked to have those guys supporting us technically. It's going to make a huge difference in this program and how successful we can be. So that stuff's going to go on shortly. You'll be able to see what the motorcycle actually looks like and sort of the way it's going to be running. We've also gone ahead and test fitted our pipe. This is a Wesby spec Yosh exhaust. Everything went on as expected. This has been a really good exhaust system for the Wesby guys, and our options, you know, we've had already some people ask, why are you using that? Well, it works really well with Wesby, and speaking plainly, our options are kind of limited with this setup because we have a swing arm that requires a different exhaust routing, and we have a racing oil pan that totally changes the orientation of the collector. So you can't just buy, you know, whatever exhaust you want, just throw it on there, because it simply will not fit. So this is just a great option that I know works well. That's what we're going to use for now. Yeah, I think that's going to be kind of it. Next step, we're going to go ahead and start putting this thing back together. We'll put the airbox back on, put the tank in place, and then we'll start fitting up this bodywork. All right, so we're about to fit this bodywork. And again, this is the full factory World Superbike stuff, and it's a little tricky to go on. There's some special brackets and stuff which have been provided. And by the way, don't mind the kind of cluttered look of the harness right now because we're going to be changing all that stuff. Again, this is just to test fit and resolve our electronic issue, which fortunately we have. But to get this bodywork on, it comes with a set of basically bespoke brackets and little adapters like this guy, this one down here, and there's some stuff on the other side. And basically it's all just quick release brackets that are perfectly mated to this chassis and that bodywork. So we'll start lining everything up and getting it on. This upper on, it interfaces with this fairing stay that we also got from Yamaha, pretty straightforward. Nice. I'll grab the other side. So there's actually going to be some grommets that we haven't yet installed here. There's kind of like a spiky looking insert that goes on one side and then a grommet that goes on the other just to really lock that in. Since we're just kind of test fitting this stuff right now, we haven't done that yet. But when we finalize everything, we will fit all those side panels and the upper with that correct piece. Oh, there it is. Okay, so this is the Factory World Superbike tail assembly, which actually uses an OEM tail light. So this is just stock Yamaha R1 tail light as a rain light, which is pretty cool. We still have to make the sub lead for that, but I think that's a pretty cool design because it kind of looks like the stock one while also looking super racy. And then we've just got our GPS that we're kind of just stuffing in here for right now. We'll come up with a nicer looking solution later on. Just like that. We've got this super trick seat pan, which Martin's already applied one of our race seats, stick-on seats, which Race Seats actually makes a special seat specifically for the World Superbike program, so we didn't have to cut that or anything. It actually showed up ready to go on, which is super convenient. All right, belly. Just explodes. That was 800 bucks.
Yeah, fat chance on this side.
Really?
Yeah.
Putting this stuff on is always really tricky because it's just really tight. So it's not unusual for it to be kind of a pain in the ass to go on the first time. Especially with these brackets, we really had to kind of pull it into place, and that's okay. Typically, once the bike gets hot, it circulates on track, or even on the dyno, which will probably not run this bodywork on the dyno. It'll loosen up, and it's a lot easier to, the more you use it, basically it breaks in and it becomes much easier to put on and off. First time is always a little bit tricky. All right, so everything's all fitted. We've, and I haven't addressed this, but as you can see, this last little bit, we did finally listen to what you guys said. We've finally got a camera that's not a GoPro, and we've got a mic, so hopefully, I know you guys have been asking for that forever. Hopefully this is an improvement. We're gonna try to integrate that more, and we've got somebody that works here now named Dakota that's really familiar with using this kind of stuff, and we're gonna try to elevate the video content for you guys and just bring you better stuff. So, what we'll show you here to wrap this up, Martin has gone ahead and fitted our pot on the shock. Nothing super exciting there to go over. We did get some really cool custom titanium pot mounts made, and all he's done is basically space that. We'll probably adjust it a little bit just to give it a little more clearance away from the swing arm. This upper body here is a little closer to the swing arm than I would care for. So we test fitted it. It looks good. We're gonna just probably move it in like a millimeter or two. And we've got to obviously keep it off the spring, but we also don't want the body of that catching the swing arm while it's under compression. It could just destroy the pot. So then a few small sub leads, and this bike's pretty much good to go. We've still got to make a seat bracket here like we were talking about. That's why this part's kind of just floating right there. We're gonna have to make something to secure that properly. Shouldn't be too much work. And then we have just a few more fittings and adapters and little things like that just to wrap up the bike, but this thing's pretty much ready to turn laps. I don't think we're gonna have to spend more than a day or so to finalize the key components needed to make this bike a runner. So I also just wanted to answer a few questions. You guys kind of made some comments here, and I'm just gonna answer the ones that I can. So one of the first things, somebody said, the electronics to sort out, make it all work. When on track, that is gonna be the most time-sucking thing about this project. That would be true in a lot of cases. Setting up the electronics on a system like this is really time-consuming and immensely complicated, but you gotta keep in mind, if you haven't seen any of our other content, last year, I spent the whole season working with this exact system on this exact motorcycle with WSBK Racing and Matthew Skoltz. So I have a ton of experience on this, maybe not compared to some guys, but a full season of high-level racing, and of course, a background in advanced electronics for the last many years. So, don't get me wrong, it's gonna be a challenge, but it's not gonna be as hard as you might think because of that. And I've already got a bunch of things that I learned at each of the tracks that we go to that are gonna be relevant and will apply directly to this. So we have another update from what we had with WSBK, but a lot of that stuff's gonna carry over. So I don't think that's gonna be as big of a hurdle, fortunately. The next one, do you plan on getting Matthew Skoltz to pilot your Yamaha when it's done? Would that conflict with his Super Sport ride at Strack? No, we don't, and yes, it would. We would love to get Matthew on the bike. He's a great rider, and it's actually something that we talked about at the beginning of the year, but unfortunately, that would be a direct conflict with his current program with Strack Racing. And, those guys are a serious contender for that championship in that class. So it's just not something I see working out. It would be a bit of a challenge for those guys to, it doesn't necessarily make sense for Strack to just lend him out to us. And it's a bit of a distraction for what they're trying to achieve there. So unfortunately, that's not gonna happen. We did have another guy lined up. I don't know how much detail I wanna go into that. He rode for another team, so you can probably figure out who it is. But super talented rider, but just the timing and everything, it just didn't quite work out. So we'll, we've got some other people that we're talking to. For sure, we'll have somebody good on the motorcycle. Let's see. Did you get parts from Yamaha World Superbike? Yes. How did we get them? The way we got those is because we're officially supported by those. We have a direct relationship. We have approval from Yamaha USA, and they've made that link with us to Yamaha Europe, which is the World Superbike program, and that is how we're able to get that stuff. It's not anything we can sell, so please don't ask, but that's how we have some of these special parts. They're just for racing use, and because we've kind of earned the trust of Yamaha by working with them over the last season and my relationship with WSBK and that kind of thing, that's kind of what opened that door. I think that's, most of this is good luck stuff, and we really appreciate that. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it for the questions that I wanted to answer on this one. So I think that's gonna wrap it up for this video. The next one will for sure have this motorcycle running. We're gonna go into some of the finer details that we're gonna wrap up on this thing. We're making some really cool brake pressure adapters with our good friend Steve at Evol Technology. We've got to make a few more little sub leads like the speed sensor stuff that we were talking about previously. We've got to make a front wheel speed sensor bracket, which we'll probably just hand make the first one. And then moving forward, we'll come up with a really nice permanent design, either 3D printed carbon fiber, billet aluminum, something like that. And that's pretty much it. This thing is literally like ready to rip. We're gonna prep the engine a little more in terms of, we'll probably prime it again. And then we got to top it off with oil, put some fuel in this thing, and it's gonna be ready to fire. So for sure we'll document all that. That'll be in the next video. We'll put it on the dyno so you can hear some really cool dyno noises and blipping and shifting sounds. Probably not gonna tell you how much it makes, but all that's gonna be coming up in the next one. So thank you guys so much for watching this, really appreciate it. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and comment if there's anything you wanna see or any questions you want me to answer. I'm happy to do it. Until then, we'll see you next time.